This program is brought to you by Tyvision Media, helping Stokvels and burial societies reach their goals. Welcome to Zaka Stokvel Insights, a platform where Stokvel and burial society members learn more about the world of business, and business leaders get to understand Stokvels and burial societies a whole lot more. If you would like us to answer some of your questions, you can use the number below on the screen, and you can also contact us using the email info@tyvisionmedia.co.za. Or if you would like to share some thoughtful insights, please do follow us across the social media platforms below. Now, today we will explore succession planning for burial clubs, how to minimize financial liability that comes with funeral claims, and we will also look at property rentals with our resident guest expert in this field, Thabiso Masudubele from Tyvision Media. But before we get into this discussion, this week's question is from Fairview Memorial Club.
We are Fairview Memorial Club. Our club mainly focused on providing its members and family members with a dignified funeral at their bereavement, which boasts of 56 years history. This started out as a brotherhood by our fathers, who wanted to support each other during their time of bereavement. Later on, the organization grew and acquire property, which aim was to generate more funds to be able to sustain itself and to continue providing dignified burial to its own members and their families. The group achievement. We have a clubhouse in square meters, which we intend to rent it out to willing tenants. We have a massive yard, which we intend to develop into a mini complex with shopping center, butchery, liquor store, and medical center. Our goal: we want the advice and referral to suitable companies that can provide reasonable funeral covers, like underwriters, to remove financial liability of funeral claims from the organization. We want suitable funders for the development of our site. We also want advice on property rental for income generation.
In business, the term succession planning outlines the next plan of action when a business owner or partner or stakeholder passes away, and this ensures the sustainability of assets and wealth. For Stokvels and burial societies, it aims to protect that wealth built through collective saving and investment. In Tate Masudubele, this is a very heartwarming story of a burial club started by fathers and brothers-in-arms, and it's been around for 56 years. So why is succession planning such an important component when it comes to Stokvels and burial societies?
Thanks for having me again, Nonto. I think it's important because it talks to continuity. So it always helps when you're planning and you say you want to generate wealth. Wealth is something that happens from generation to generation. And so what we want to do, and what we see a lot of Stokvels wanting to do, is to make sure that they not only grow, but their children also benefit from the Stokvels. So succession planning within Stokvels then becomes important, because it means then when the parents are no longer around, the children get to continue the tradition of the Stokvel. And what that then means is that Stokvels continue to grow from generation to generation. And as they grow, because different generations acquire different information, they'll also grow in terms of the resources and in terms of how those resources are used. So for instance, you'd have in the past 56 years ago, methods of investing and how things were done then were quite different to how they're done now. So now you'd have children who are now members of those Stokvels knowing what investment instruments are there, and that just augurs well for the growth of the Stokvel and for the benefits that accrue to the different members.
Why not estate planning? What would be the differentiator between the two?
Right. So estate planning and succession, essentially the main difference is that one talks to individuals and the other one talks to groups. So with estate planning, that's where you're looking at each individual member of a stokvel, making sure that they've planned for when they're no longer on earth. They've written a will that talks to what happens to their stokvel membership, what happens to the proceeds of their stokvel, and so on. And where that helps is that, for instance, a member of a stokvel passes away, and then there's no certainty in terms of what happens to their benefits when the family arrives. So you might have different people from the same family coming to claim the benefits of the deceased member of the stokvel. So in the case where there is no estate planning, this obviously poses a problem for the stokvel to say, who do we give these benefits to? Do we give it to the first son? Do we give it to the second son? Do we give it to the daughter? Do we give it to the wife? And so on. And so estate planning in that respect talks to how the member plans their own estate and details what should happen to those. It's almost like making sure that you include your stokvel benefits in your will. And then when you look at succession planning refers more to companies and groups. So we like to say to stokvels, they should start considering themselves as companies, as legal entities, which they are. So when you talk about succession planning, you're planning and ensuring that these groups exist even beyond the individual members, meaning that the group is bigger than the member. And I think when people get together at the beginning, this is exactly why they form stokvels, to make sure that you've got an entity that becomes bigger than the individual members. So once you have such an entity, you then need to have succession planning in place to say, once we are gone, and it's not only about when members leave God's living earth, but it also talks to once the chairperson is no longer able to carry out the duties of a chairperson. You should have earmarked who might have those qualities as a group to make sure that the continuity is smooth and it doesn't affect the growth of the stokvel.
When would it be the right time for members to introduce the topic or concept of succession planning? Because I can just imagine certain stokvel groups or burial societies don't survive longer than 5 years. So when would it be the right time?
As soon as possible. In fact, if I can, just to touch on a couple of examples that we've seen with stokvels. You'll have a stokvel which has had a chairperson for 20 plus years. And then when you try to find out why a person has been, the chairperson for 20 years, the response that you get typically is that would be the founder of the stokvel. And so what that typically means, it means that the group revolves around an individual, which is not an ideal situation. So what we then try to engage with stokvels is to say, as soon as possible, make sure that even the person who's founded the stokvel, just because they founded it, doesn't mean then they're present for life, if you will. They should then allow for other people to come and steer the ship, and those people might then be able to steer the ship in the right direction. So as soon as possible, that's when the discussion should start around succession planning, and not just for the position of chairperson, but for the different portfolios that exist within stokvels as well.
Now, what organizations or platforms exist with helping, members with the process of succession planning?
Well, succession planning, I think there are different development organizations that exist. I mean, even in academia, you've got, whole academic courses that deal with succession planning. But it also talks to, when you're looking at your academia, you have institutions and organizations like ours as Tyvision Media, where we put people in touch with the relevant experts, but then we guide them on how to manage this issue of succession planning. Because what you find that succession planning also brings up an unintended consequence, which is conflict. Because with succession planning naturally comes two people vying for the same spot, and you can't have two different. So we encourage that there's a robust debate around it, but we also encourage that debate and that succession planning is constructive, meaning that at every point of the robust discussion, what it should have at the tail end is the interest of the group and not the interest of the individual.
Well, we will be taking a very short, quick break. Stay tuned for more after the break.
Are you a member of a stokvel or burial society? We at Tyvision Media specialize in helping stokvels and burial societies. Contact us for professional Stokvel and Burial Society administration, access to investments and funeral cover experts, and credible financial information. We will help your Stokvel and Burial Society to achieve your goals and grow. Contact us today.